Yeah, and then just pause or cancel the recording. Thank you. That's all. Yeah. Look at this. There it is. Shut it off. And then you're gonna wanna go to the other on the side, on the left side there. Yeah, go to that one.
Good afternoon. Did it show up eventually, or did you take the stairs?
Took the stairs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I broke it.
Oh,
this is
hard to eat.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
No, I don't like it. I put moose eyes, because it wants to go like this up the middle. Doesn't take me long to get ready though now. You can sit by me, so. Yeah.
That's right.
I was not signing. Business signs.
Gordon. Hey, how are you? I know, I get up here and I'm like, whew, how does it work out? Well, it's good for you, so. What? Yeah. There you go. Um,
17.
Yeah.
Check to see if Susan's in.
Go, sir.
Thank you.
Good. Up 4:30 in the morning, man, I'm all good. Vacation. Oh, going to see those grandchildren on Colorado. Oh, boy. Yeah. I may have to drive home because that's when I'm worried about being so late for Thanksgiving. And I know, wow. Oh, it's the wrong right. Yeah. So, I just can't wait to get there.
I'm sure that what I'm sick like.
Who you want to share that with?
She's the lucky person.
She's the one you want to share it with.
So maybe after we get all caught up month to month, we'll be. Hey there, you like my number.
Supposedly, no.
Well, this is,
Sometimes I do.
well, this is all Holiness does, the
Oh, okay.
actual report. And see, what we do is, down here is what we budgeted for the year, for each column. If we don't have enough in that column to pay the bill, it has to be transferred to that column. Does that make sense?
Okay.
There's all the checks,
It's done.
and then at the end, this is what it should come out.
Turn here.
So it's,
Yeah.
right now, I'm gonna, you know, what we have, in the column, what we set money aside. It's real easy to follow in bigger print.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of our stuff is a little tiny.
Yeah. I think she just does that by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put it there.
I haven't found it yet.
I'm trying to.
Okay. That's good.
Once today,
I thought I gave it.
well, you're on Medicare, we don't, we can't get one. When he says, I've always just paid $100.
It's fine, yeah,
No, so.
talk to him on the phone, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Priority guy.
yeah, I think that's fine.
Good, okay, yeah, no problem.
Never chiropractor I've ever went to, I've always just paid them. So I'll whack her, get me on Thursday, so.
One. Brian home free.
By myself,
That.
yes.
I'll let one know me is, so.
Sure.
I got you, bud. I'm watching you back. Got your 6, man. And it's been. Oh, is it? And I. And
Do well at the pool.
I thought I was gonna be smart, but I didn't have the charger there in it, so I gotta sleep. So I guess I just gotta charge it from over there.
You going up to Colorado?
I
I
got
thought you were gonna drag somebody with you.
my hubby.
Oh.
Um. So, no, the other one doesn't feel like it's a good time. It's probably.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, no, I was. Like.
It gave us a list.
I mean, that's right.
Yeah.
And there one.
Oh, I'm gonna go out here.
Because they
And
had
I'm
to
gonna write
get
them on there. Oh, I can
some more data
show
on
them.
their bloom.
This meeting is transcribed. What is it? I was thinking cafe and one. Mike Day's gonna reach out to you to get a new bid from Jen, so we can get all that approved. Well, not new bid, so new proposal, not Jen, Baycom,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Baycom, sorry, to
Okay.
get the one removed, and then he wanted clarification on some of those, the littler things that they threw on there.
Okay,
What that all is, so he's gonna send you.
okay.
And then if we can get that new updated one, then we can give
Figure it
you
out.
the thumbs up to
Except the last con.
order it all.
Okay.
So that's what our hope is with that.
That's the last con.
And
If they're uploaded on.
But you said they're not the correct, most up to date.
The ones on the internet are, but the ones in the packet
This one's good
there
for
aren't.
2 years.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can.
I haven't seen that.
I
Internet
printed
one.
one.
Yeah. Just send it all.
Oh, so there will be another one coming.
I got you 4, we did 4.
Yeah, that's the last.
Size me for it. And then we'll have to get the updated reprogramming from 11 to 13.
That's one
So-
we had. That's one we had.
Yeah.
With the counties, you know, under. And
All of which
our
are
board.
the ratings.
And that's what all this came up to, that those numbers aren't right yet. And that.
Yeah, those are the ones that have been worked on cars, yes, I think.
So this will be the third.
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
Black Ribbon's on display for you or something.
Yeah.
I see what you guys end up there. Seems. No,
The lawyer?
yeah,
Yeah,
you said we,
Hagan.
because you had a dispute too,
Yeah, we got Hagan, yeah. And he fled some,
on account of
the contract and
the
everything.
way it was. The numbers on it.
And, or what happens if it gets to sell all that stuff? Yeah, where is that stuff also? There was more in depth stuff. And I didn't bring my phone, but yeah. And so they prefer not just a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract, so we can get our district sold.
I'd rather just say, no.
Well, now the fire department wants to build a new building. Did you hear about that?
I heard that.
But who's gonna pay for that building to be taken down? And the investor said it's,
It's city, fire department, right?
no, that's
Yeah.
a district.
And the district too.
Yeah,
Right.
we are the district, gotcha.
Yeah,
So,
I just want to touch base. All
district numbers.
right, do we have a quorum? Can you hold?
Well, we.
well, how many years ago was it? 3 or 4 years ago, we maxed that, and built with us out there. No, they, but not to be involved in one house and okay, the fire building was small, I was like,
Well, no, that's all the time.
it's gonna cost me like $1. Great. Then,
Well, that shouldn't surprise anybody.
No.
I had duplets.
So.
went with us.
Yes.
We would have had both working together.
Mary, did you get my voicemail and email? I left your voicemail and an email.
Today?
No, Friday, Thursday. Thursday.
I didn't get.
No. No, because I did both on Thursday. Okay.
Is something I should know now?
No, it's a reminder. It's the meeting reminder.
Oh, I got that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure you got those. Yep,
Yeah.
that's all it was. Okay. How many? So are we taking Yuba off of the number required for?
No, because they're still a member for this year.
Okay, so how many do we?
Till the end of the year, right?
9.
Yeah.
I think 9 is.
There's no one online, so.
Would be call my secretary friend.
I really thought Carrie was coming.
Yeah.
I can text them.
Not been a week.
Mm-hmm.
Did, Stan,
Oh, is anybody online?
No, I just checked.
Oh,
did Stan, he said he wasn't coming?
No.
that I,
A lot of times the mayor jumps online too.
Yeah,
But sometimes
and I've
the
got
everybody
them.
jump on.
Jerome doesn't have emails, so, or a reminder.
I called him.
Oh, did you?
I called him the same day I called me.
Oh, okay.
Cause I call them both, one and then the other.
I didn't get a voice.
No, I don't know. I haven't heard from him.
And I also mailed him, like snail mail,
Oh,
a pack.
it's still probably still getting there.
Hi, Don. Are you coming to the meeting? Okay. Okay, well, we're just Thursday.
Vice
night,
chair.
So I thought it
Oh.
was.
He just reached out.
I didn't hear.
I don't have a chair.
He was going to.
Carrie
Yeah.
picked up a shirt.
When you leave, it's time.
Okay. Okay. All right, well,
Doug's
I
calling
just,
Todd to see.
Okay,
no, not yet.
he's calling Todd to see if we can get Todd.
Hey Todd, this is Doug.
Yeah, we're calling a couple
Went to the
here,
here,
so we're trying.
Meeting.
You wanted to look up.
call back. You can make it. Appreciate it. Mike.
Because we do not have quorum yet,
Yep,
so we can't call the meeting to order.
but
He could still
Yeah.
give him a presentation. Just can't vote on it.
We
We cannot have any action taken.
Right.
Don's sick.
Oh,
Can't
With
do
the
that.
legal
No,
one.
we can't even
That's
have
the
a
big,
meeting
he
without
can get on his
quorum.
computer, he doesn't really feel very good, so.
okay,
Hey, Barb, we can't even have a meeting without quorum.
okay.
I think we could have a presentation that was not part of the JAC committee. There we go. We're good.
There we go. There he is, Mr. Number 9. Yay.
Hey.
That wrong person. Oops, you need the wrong drums. So you got my mess? All right, here we go. All right. So without a chair or vice chair, Brian, would you mind?
Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Severson. Fleming. Coppernoll. Rojo.
Here.
Walty.
Here.
McGraw.
Here.
Tim. Niemeyer.
Here.
Hurst.
Yeah.
Stanky. Palmer.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Willis. Nix. Here. Ginger. McCarthy. And Martin.
We're here.
And
Yeah.
posting.
Yeah,
The meeting was posted appropriately and both here and online.
Okay.
next item is approval of agenda. Everybody have a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Any additions or correction?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Approval of previous meeting minutes. Everyone have a chance to review those?
I move to accept the minutes.
In a second from Ron Holt, she'll get that. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Okay.
Public comment.
We come for the Eagles committee meeting.
Anyone online comment?
Oh.
Oh, excuse me.
That's,
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
just
We got
real
it.
quick
Yep.
wanted to introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Danielle Zimmerman. I'm the Chief of Staff to State Representative Tony Kurtz, who represents all of Richland County.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I'm
Bye.
his public safety guru. So I know Alan's gonna give a presentation later and he'll probably talk a lot about what we're doing on the state level. But here to answer any questions that you guys might have about what we're working on. We've got several bills that have just passed involving EMS. We're working on a couple of more that could do a lot of good things for the county and impact you guys. So I'm just here to listen and happy to answer questions if there's anything I can do to help.
Thank you. EMT delegation. I see none. Are we gonna get Mr. Young on first, or do you want to do?
I think Leanna was hoping that she could get going with hers because she does have about an hour drive to get home.
We will move then to finance presentation, Leanna Pick.
Share my screen here.
Barb, Todd said he will be here as soon as he can. He's working on a couple things.
Sure. Appreciate that. And Carrie will join at 6 if we're still involved. He's done at that point. We'll get online.
Okay. Thank you, as I mentioned, I'm Leanna Pick, Finance Director. I've been here just a little over 3 months. So I did give this sort of same presentation to the Executive and Finance Committee last month on October 27th, but thought it'd be a good idea to give it to this committee as well. So I'm just gonna jump right in. So you've got a packet in front of you that does include what I'm gonna show here for the balance sheets, the monthly income statement for 2025, and then the income statement comparison. So those are the three that I really want to discuss tonight. And then maybe we can answer any questions that you have as I go along. So a lot of this started with the balance sheet, kind of just a quick overview of that, what it is and how it's used. So the first one here that I'm showing you, this 8/31 balance sheet, was just kind of the one before I started. It was put out there and there were comments as to the AR on it and calling that cash. And so just kind of want to clear up some of that confusion that accounts receivable doesn't not necessarily represent cash. It is, but it isn't, because it's not collected yet. It's really hard to say that it's cash until you actually collect it. So, and then just illustrating how these balances change. So we've got our AR, and then we've also got the allowance for doubtful accounts. So on the first one, you can see it was minus 175,000 for our allowance, which is essentially taking your AR balance and adjusting it for what you believe you're actually going to collect. So making it a net receivable. So what the auditors did at the end of 2023 is they came in and they said, of all of this AR from 2015 to 2023, we don't believe that you're gonna collect 175,000 of it. So we created a reserve, this allowance at that time. And what that allowance does, and I've got a little box there that just kind of notes, is that it essentially took all of those receivables and made them zero on the balance sheet. And it booked an expense at that time, which we'll see when we get to the year-over-year income statement. So then when I presented to the Executive and Finance Committee on 10/27 is this one here in the middle. And it's dated as of 10/31, but there's a reason for that. So a balance sheet is strictly a point in time. So if I ran it yesterday and I ran it today, they're not going to give you the same picture. It's just a static point in time of what you own, your assets, and what you owe, your liabilities. And then when you net those together, you get your equity, either positive or negative, your fund balance. Okay. So in this one that was ran on 10/27, we had received in October the auditor's adjustments for 2024, which we are going to be going over those in the county board meeting tomorrow, I believe. So we'll get more information on some of those then. But what they did is they said for our 2024 AR, they didn't believe that we would collect 198,000 of that. So they increased that allowance for doubtful accounts by $198,000. Therefore lowering what we would still receive from 2024 and booking an expense. So then we go to the latest one. This is the as of 10/31, actual one. Month is closed. We booked all of our accounting entries. We booked all of the auditor's entries. And what we did based on the Executive and Finance Committee meeting is, you can see here, 2015 through 2025 is all zeroed out. But we have now one account called ambulance accounts receivable all. So this is all of your accounts receivable that remain as of 10/31 for 2024 and 2025. And it had a balance of $503,000 at that time. But from that, you have to take off your allowance, which is $200,000, which gets you to a net receivable of $300,000 remaining. So that's what the auditors and everyone says of all of our AR that's out there as of October 31st, we will only receive about $300,000. And a lot of that has to do with how claims are processed right away. There's amounts taken off the top, you know, for Medicare, Medicaid, they make adjustments right away. So we get those write-offs on a monthly basis. And then at year end, auditors come in and say, let me audit your balance and say, how much of that do we really historically believe will be collected? And that's where these other adjustments come in at. So our net accounts receivable for ambulance at the end of October was $303,000. Okay, everybody's okay with that following? And I can show you on here too. This might illustrate it even more. So this one isn't in your packet, it was in the prior packet. But it'll all be out online tomorrow as part of the meeting minutes.
It's already out.
Oh, it is, okay, perfect. So what this does is it shows you how these balances, 2022, 23, 24, 25, all these items in this bright blue color didn't change. We didn't get any of that money in. So the auditors are right. And that lined up with this $175,000 that they had reserved. So now you see this little chart over here. This is the end of October. We took that allowance and we got rid of those. We said, no, they've been written off already on your income statement. They've been recognized as expense. No reason to have them out there anymore. I spoke with the auditor, they agreed with that, adjust that consensus, and we went ahead and did it to simplify it. So what it shows you here again is that 503,000 of total receivables for 24 and 25 remaining, less your 200,000 allowance remaining, gets you to 303,000 of accounts receivable to be collected yet. Okay? I think my mouse. Computer issue for a second here. We'll let it catch up. Otherwise, I'll have to do it just by speaking to it. It's fine.
Is this sheet in our packet?
No.
No, it's a
It
new
was
one,
the prior.
it's online that I just published right before the meeting.
But we didn't have it out until then.
Yeah, we discussed what to print and decided we wouldn't print all of it again.
But this sheet is in the packet that Barb printed.
Yeah.
So the billing company that we have working for us, so they no longer go back any further and try to collect any outstanding?
No, that's not true. They will.
Oh.
But we're not counting on it coming in. So if it
So the
does,
plus, they get it in?
if it comes in, it still goes to, and Fund 51.
Right, okay.
And that's bonus.
Yeah. Okay.
For lack of a better word,
I just don't want to tell them that, hey, you don't have to worry about those anymore.
No, not at all. That's not at all what's being said.
That's not the case. If it were to come in, the fact is that we did already make an allowance and write it off. What we would do is take that amount against the write-off account, essentially reducing the overall write-off then. So.
And some of these that are written off are from like 2016, 17, 18.
Yeah.
You know, the chances of getting anything to those aren't very good.
Yep. I get this thing to come back. Okay, so. Any other questions on the balance sheet? I can't show it here, but if you look at the bottom of it, any of them, essentially, so you've got your assets, what you own, you've got your liabilities, what you owe. And you got your equity, kind of that net balance of what your entity is worth. So as of the beginning of the year, we had a fund balance of $108,000 sitting on the balance sheet. What Tyler does is different than some of the places I've worked. It'll put a revenue and an expense line and an over and under at the bottom of your balance sheet. So by doing this, what happens at year end, so if we were to close tomorrow, this is what would technically happen to your fund balance. So you would increase the fund balance by your revenue, your 957,000 you've taken in year to date. And then you would decrease it by the $1.1 million that you've spent so far. So you are therefore overspent by $44,000. So what it would do is reduce that equity balance by that negative $44,000, making your equity going into the next year to be only $64,000. So it does a nice job of illustrating that on our balance sheet. And then if we move to, let's come back here.
She took over, she can go to it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you go to the income statement comparison, monthly income statement.
One more.
This one. Okay, so on this one, so we can see our revenues total coming in. So far for the year through October, we have invoiced, the ambulance company has invoiced $838,000. We've received from towns through contracts, $112,000. And our other miscellaneous revenue was $5,000. And that can be donations, that can just be stuff that has come in from pretty much anywhere, just doesn't fall into one of those other buckets. So that's where it goes into miscellaneous.
And most of that, I will tell you, is standby fees that my crews have earned by doing things like the fair, the demo, the dirt drags, things like that. That's where most of that fund, those funds come from.
Could you tell us what page you're on? I haven't found you yet.
This one right here, what?
I mean,
Page 9 in the packet, Gordon.
Yeah. Everybody's there? Okay. So that's gonna be just a snapshot of every month of what your revenues have been coming in and the different sources. Then below that, what we have is all of our expenses for the year from January through October. The first sort of third of those of that page going down to past life insurance there, those are all of your employee benefits and salaries within that sort of like top third of the page there, right in the middle, salaries to life insurance. You can see what those have been, you can see everything else underneath it, but the big line that we're looking for is towards the bottom of the page, and it is called insurance write-offs. And that one so far this year is $325,000. And this comes through from our third-party billing company every month. And we just book the entries that we're being told to book there. So that's essentially everything they're writing off. They're getting a bill and then they're saying automatically, well, maybe we can't get 20% of this. So they're sending that over to us right away of like, no, we're not gonna, if it was $1,000, they're gonna say we're only gonna collect 800. And then we're gonna write off that other 200 immediately. And that's what you're seeing within this write-offs line here, which has been huge this year. But when we get to the comparison, you'll see it's probably right in line with everything else. And then if you go to the bottom of the next page, that again just kind of gets you back to your each month, kind of where you've been in terms of revenue versus expenses. Oh, that's the annual one. Let's go back to the monthly one again. Just towards the bottom. Here you go. So you can see that line that says total surplus or deficit. So negatives or deficits. So this is just again by month, what you brought in, what you paid out, and here's your balance. And then what it shows on the bottom there is how it affects the beginning fund balance. So remember that $108,000 we started the year with? This is how we're getting to our current 64,000 with, 2 months left to go, November and December. So the other thing that this tells me, actually, we'll go to the next one. So we'll move on to the comparative. No questions on this. What I can do, I think someone showed me a report earlier about adding budget. We can do that. We can add a line down here to show you your kind of monthly budget breakdown, and if that helps, where you're trending for your budget. So far this year, the ambulance budget was $1.164 million. That was the entire budget for the year. For the revenues and the expenses equal 0, right? So, because you gotta have a balanced budget. So we'd have 1.164 in revenue and 1.164 in expenses. As of October 31st, we had 957,000 in revenue, and we had 1.001 million in expenses. So our expenses are up and our revenues are down compared to where we want them. We want them to be the other way. We want our revenue to be higher than our expenses. Any questions there?
I will say there's one municipality who still owes us about 40,000, so that'll make us much closer to whole.
Yeah. Once we collect that, and that's due by, I believe, December 31st. So once we get that in, we'll be able to be a little bit closer, but we'll still have this November and December, whatever we spend for those 2 months and revenue. So, but much closer.
And just to make sure I understand, when you say revenue, are you meaning actual cash that crossed the desk?
No. So when we have a call, we have a transaction, they will make an entry, and their entry is gonna be, they're gonna bill it, so that's gonna increase your AR. And the other thing that it's gonna do at the time that we bill it is it's also gonna increase our revenues. So those two go hand in hand. And when we collect on it, that's when we get that magical cash in. So that's a whole other entry. So that reduces AR, credits AR, and then debits your cash. So it's the other side of it. But this is just saying, this is what we brought in, and we know we have to bring in a certain amount in order to meet all of our operating expenses. So if we go to the year-over-year one next, the comparison income statement. Oh, maybe not that one. Should say income statement comparison. It should have all the years at the top. There we go. So this one, when I went back to 2019 and I pulled all the expenses for 2019 through October 2025. And this can show you what your revenue is doing. So you can see from 2019, we had about 800,000 in revenue. 906, 952, 981. It's pretty steady there, right? All the way across in terms of revenue. So we're averaging about 950,000 a year in revenue coming in, top line. Then we got our expenses. I don't know if we can kind of minimize that box there of the attendees, but we can.
The down arrow. No. Yes, over, just a little more the other way, that one.
Little carrot thing maybe, there we go. Okay, perfect. So we can see what's been happening here. So we have our revenues, but then we kind of look at where our expenses have been going. So we know like in salaries and benefits in the last, 4 or 5 years, we've been increasing our staffing. We wanted to get to be fully staffed, full-time ambulance crew. That's what we've been working towards. So all of those have been trending in the upward direction. So you can see your averages there, what we've been spending for salaries, benefits, all the way down through life insurance. That's all salaries and benefits, that whole section there. And then if we scroll down just a little bit more, sort of see kind of what has been happening with everything else. So another part of the story is 2023, wasn't that we moved from being in this building to being in an actual building for ambulance by itself. So with that also came increased costs. So we would look at our lights. Look what happened to our lights, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, whoo, suddenly we're up. Same thing with your phone, same thing with a lot of these. If you just follow these trend lines over, you can see how the costs have been increasing. While again, as I mentioned, that revenue line, that top line revenue has been staying relatively static. So you've got that staying flat, but you've got expenses going this way. So that is what's causing us to be upside down. And I believe if we scroll to the bottom of this one, just a little bit down, keep going. So we're gonna see some of those other lines there, so we stop right there. So we've got there's our write-offs line, year over year over year over year. There's a big one there in 2023 where they booked that $175,000 that they said, all this AR you have sitting on your balance sheet from 2015 to 2023, we don't believe you're gonna collect that. So in 2023, the auditors booked that entry for $175,000. That went a credit to the allowance account on the balance sheet that I showed you to begin with, and a debit to this expense line, making it $494,000. So you've got your whole year write-offs as you're going along, and then you've got this audit entry that comes in that says, here's your receivables. We really historically have not collected on 60% of these. We're gonna have to create a write-off for that, a reserve, so to speak. And that's what happens there. It happened at the end of 2024, and it will happen again at the end of this year. They will come in and they will audit our balance as of December 31st. And whatever that is, remember we said it was $303,000 as of the end of October. They'd come in and say, well, we don't believe you're gonna collect like at least 50% of that based on history, based on everything they know about these accounts. And they'll create another reserve, essentially lowering that amount that they believe we can collect. Because as every day, every month, every year goes past, your chances of collecting it become extremely low. Okay? And then we get to, let's see, I don't think this, yeah, it illustrates it. So we look at so we got our total expense line, been averaging about $1 million in expense since we moved into a new building and we increased our staffing. That's where we've been averaging. So that comes to about $85,000 a month in expense. So in order to be on top of that, we have to be bringing in more than $85,000 a month in revenue to be covering our expenses. And we can see the trend line where we were positive in 2019. For our fund balance, you had $43,000, 2020, 91,000, 85,000, 32. Then we start to take this downward slope. And that is where all of our fund balance has been going year over year for these last few years. Again, static revenue, increase of expenses equals a deficit on that bottom line and a reduced fund balance. Any questions there? I'm trying to keep it slow and simple. All right, so let's see. If we want to look at some more stuff, we can look at the comparison data tab. Just kind of give you the same thing. So this again shows you at the top where we've been in terms of number of calls, terms of revenue, terms of expenses, and whether or not we had a surplus or a deficit. And this is just going back to 2021 on this one, just to again show that positive. And then as we move into that new building, we get the decrease or not the decrease, but static revenues, and then the increase in expenses. And then shows some of the data on population and some other things in here that I was just running and looking at in terms of what would happen if we did certain things, you know, and why we're kind of looking at an increased amount in a contract, because we've had an increased amount in expenses year over year for the last at least 3 years, as you can see here, when we've moved and we've increased our staffing. Any questions there? And then I do have in here call data, which I went through all the tabs that Barb had out there, and I updated them. So there's kind of 2 charts in there. If you click on that one, the 2 charts. So the top one is the original one that I shared, and I just made sure that it aligned with all of the rows in green down there. So the ones in green actually is all of the call volume, and we plucked out some of these ones where say, oh, it was really called for Aiken, so that one was taken out. And you can see where all of this has been taken out, and all we're really looking at is the ones in green are the ones that are up in the top that we're looking to set contract amounts for. So we're not we have sifted through the data to make sure that the calls that we're including for like your areas, your townships are correct. So, and then if you go up, there's a little chart that kind of shows you too what it is over here. So you've got your average number of calls and you've kind of got the population, so it just gives you kind of a chart of that. Anything else with that? So, and I know it was brought up earlier about the third-party billing company. We have made some progress, I believe, in the last couple of weeks in terms of just being able to reconcile our data that we have in the system with the report that they've given us. And we found some new information is whether or not it's necessarily gonna help, it's gonna bring us closer to their end balance. It's not necessarily gonna impact cash. It more just impacts the AR balance that's outstanding, just to make sure that we're aligned. So they did some work for us at the end of December of 2024, in which we never got a report for that into the accounting department, so we couldn't book what they had done as claims for that. It's not astronomical in terms of things. In terms of our difference, it's 61,000 in AR. And of that, 40% of that would be uncollectible, so you can kind of do the math there. Any questions, anything you want to ask, I can try to answer while I'm here. Otherwise, you can reach out to me too.
Well, I just have a, says net AR balance at 303,000, I understand.
Mhm.
Any estimate of what we're gonna collect on that, or what we actually have to write off of that?
Well, in the auditors and what they've been doing year over year, it looks to be about 40% that they've been writing off, that they would take off of that. So if we just said 50%, you'd be looking at 150,000 coming off and 150,000 remaining to be collected. So it doesn't paint a real pretty picture, but I do think that, you know, there's transparency of it. This is where we are at. This has been pooled. This has all been verified. These are all audited records that I am presenting to you. Just really in the hope that we can continue to produce for you the monthly income statement and the year over year comparison so that you have it and you can see where you're at. And like I said, add a budget line to the bottom of it so you can see where you're trending for budget. So once we get in some more of this, we got a little bit outstanding on contract revenue. When that comes in by the end of the year, it's about 40,000. We'll be sitting, if it were to come in today, we'd be sitting at about minus $4,000 with a month and a half of the service left to go, including billing and including expenses. And the one thing I will note is that year over year, yes, we're kind of hovering at a certain expense, but we are keeping it within, I think, reason. They're reasonable amounts. I didn't see anything that I thought, oh, this is off the charts, we should be pulling back here or anything like that. So our ambulance service is doing a good job of controlling the expense as much as they can. I believe our biggest issues lie in collections. From what I've seen from, in my opinion, what I've seen from the unified billing is I'm not impressed with it. I also will say that I found inconsistencies in the reports that they sent me, and I've had to request data a couple times to get the right data from them. And then they have changed data on us. So my computer hasn't responded yet, but if you went to that unified AR summary, this one's gonna kind of blow your eyeballs out maybe a little bit. Probably have to shrink it down if we can. A little bit more even. Okay, so this is the report that they send us each month, and each month we go through and we record the charges, which is the new AR coming in. We get the cash receipts regularly, so those are recorded on a regular basis. We just make sure that they match to what's here. And then we get the write-offs each month. So everything in kind of that charges column has been reconciled. This is actually an older one.
This
So-
is the latest one that we had.
Yeah, I thought I sent you one that had it reconciled. Cause the one I have doesn't have any differences. Let me see if I can just get out of this and bring it up. But what we found is that this doesn't show it, but the one you get that goes into the final packet will be revised and you'll see it. It has tying out to Tyler, all $840,962 of charges. It has all of the payments tied out. And I found that that variance within the payments actually related back to our previous company. So we received at the beginning of the year still some payments flowing in from EMS EC or MC. So that's what the difference is there in terms of the cash receipts. And then the write-offs we had totally reconciled as well. So you'll see that in the revised one that we get. It's unfortunate my computer doesn't want to play nice tonight. Yeah, because I could pull that up right now. But we did reconcile everything except for that bright green one, which today I got a report that does tell me where that came from. And that was 2024 AR that they billed that we never got a report on in accounting. So we will be recording that. And so that'll give us a boost in AR of that 61,000. So that'll make AR closer to what they have in their ending AR, should almost match exactly. And again, I feel that we're missing information. So that yellow one in January that you see there, that $84,000, they changed that on us in, gosh. Yeah, so the January entry that they send us, they reversed it in October. It was $132,000 and they reversed it down to 84,000, which again sends red flags off in my brain as to why are you going back and changing a balance that was 10 months ago? So that was one of the first things that's why it's highlighted. I was just making a note of that mentally, and our accounting supervisor also will confirm that they've gotten numerous reports of changes month over month from this company. So it's very hard to reconcile or stay on top of everything and know that what you're getting from them is honest. Yeah.
I thought this company was supposed to be so great.
Since I came in, I haven't been happy with them. I have 2 quotes currently from other billing companies that I've shared. One of them is one I just got today. And we will be looking to make changes. There are reasons not to do that immediately,
Yeah.
because of things that we need them to clean up on their AR before I make a change. But once that's done, I think that we need to explore that very in depth.
I did hear the one we originally started with has really picked up and doing a good job.
Yeah, actually, my reconciliation, the EMS MC
See, and that's.
did
what I got
actually
from.
reconcile year over year within like $2,000. So
And
I
that's-
was more comfortable with the information I got from them than I have been with what I've got from Unified. Yes.
And they'll also do some additional collections for us,
Sorry.
for state revenues.
But they were also the ones that stopped collecting.
Which,
Right,
Period of time.
yes.
oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, we didn't get any reports from them
No.
really from December until June. They were the first reports we got giving us all the information for January, February, March, April, May, and June. And then they turn around in October and they changed January. Well, you just gave it to us in June. So,
Yeah.
yeah. That's where I think my last recommendation, executive finance, was to really look into third-party billing and how we were doing that. And so we are chasing that up to improve on that. Because I think everything else, like I said, the ambulance has done a great job in controlling the expenses. You know, we can show you how it's changed year over year and why it changed, you know, because we moved into a new building, we increased our staff, we're fully staffed, ready to serve, you know, that kind of thing. And so we've got everything where it needs to be. All the pieces are there. Now we just need to work out that top line revenue and cash, and being able to collect more of that would really help. Even if you collected 10% more, you know, think about where we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if we were collecting better on it, so.
Thank you for the information. It's really, really helpful. And this is the second time I've gone through it that I followed along when you went through it, and it
Yeah.
makes even more sense to me the second time around than it did first.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, if I could ask
Sure.
it, around the call data by municipality under the summary of all calls. And it shows that some calls were transferred from one entity to another. I wonder if someone could speak to the process that, on which those calls were
next
given.
time.
So it's this one that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That night.
Computer to open it.
And over on
Call data, sorry, 7.
So I can
Yeah.
start to respond to that and then Barb can jump in to help on
Mhm.
that. So what had happened was because there was the request to double check and double check and double check, Barb started doing a deep dive into every single call that came in. So when the calls currently come in, the staff will assign them to a municipality. It was found that they were being assigned to the incorrect municipality. And so Barb literally went line by line by line to make sure that they were all popped into the right one. The problem is we couldn't change the state system. We could only,
Those
We-
calls are locked on the state system from 21, 22, 23. So we can't update those reports that we're gonna pull back. But I went through every report, copied out the address, put it into the GIS system to verify township. And literally thousands of reports, one by one.
on an address by address basis.
Address by address. I know that that was requested. The data I will not provide in an open meeting. You're welcome to come into my office because if I provide that in an open meeting, it is subject to open records and I don't think that's fair to our people that we serve. I don't want their addresses out on the public. So if you'd like your township's data, I am happy to provide it to you or your municipalities. Sorry, I'm not speaking. But I'm really not okay with putting that out on the web. That's not fair to those people who call for an ambulance.
Well, I would have to say that the number of calls that you have come up with, Richland is still not agreeing with your numbers. You have given Richland Township a list for the 4 years that has all the calls that you have assigned to us. And there are dozens of those calls that are not in Richland Township.
so the attorneys are working through that right now. So there is an attorney that Richland Township has. They are working with that attorney and the two attorneys can work through that. So if there are calls that they're concerned with, your attorney needs to contact the county's
Well,
attorney.
we've-
We'll start.
Now, I would just like this group to know what has happened to Richland Township. When that first contract came out for 2026, Richland Township, you were charging us, said we had 124 calls was our average. And we complained about that, saying, no, you're putting Pine Valley in that 124. And then for some reason you said, oh, Pine Valley hasn't been charged to anyone. That should be charged to Richland Township. So then our calls on our contract went up to 192 average. And we said, no. And we took that to the county board and they were sympathetic with us and said, no, Richland Township should not be paying for Pine Valley. And they took them out. And that put our average down to 116. That is still too high, according to what we figure it should be. We have been on a 57 average calls, and now we're still at 116. So then we told you to look it over, and you came up with this list, and that put our average at 74. Well, we look through the 74 and we can pull out calls and that puts the average down to just about 50, 49.75. Richland Township, on that list that you guys are counting, we have calls that are in Orion Township, Rockbridge Township, Ithaca Township, Dayton Township, Henrietta, Marshall, Bloom, Willow, those are still on that list. I can tell you, Santa Claus Lane, TB, County TB, Linsing Lane, Highway 80 and Wagner Road, those are not in Richland Township. County Highway D is not in Richland Township. Hall Lane is not in Richland Township. County Road BR is not in Richland Township. Huffman Lane is not in Richland.
Gordon, I'm gonna interrupt you. You're reading off a list of ones that you say are not in your township. Have you provided that list to the people that are gonna fix it?
They are working on it.
Okay, so I think you've
But I
made,
want this group to be aware
I
of
think you
why
made-
we are complaining.
I think you've made your point.
Well, I hope so.
Anything else?
I have one question. So if Dayton Township, as an example, or any other township would like to look at the list, we contact you, Barb?
Yes.
Okay,
And I'll be happy to get it. I just am not,
I understand why.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In this list, so if you look at here, row 57, well, you don't have rows on there. But where it says Town of Richland there in green, and then underneath it, it says Town of Richland with a little dash caret symbol, county facilities. You know, depending on where the roads, this is the information that Barb sorted out, and that all I did was do a count and pull it in, and just kind of separated it here, so you could see that we were separating it out from those numbers. So I don't know if some of those roads mentioned falls within county facilities, but we separated those out in pink. We had some for the town of Richland other, so we separated those out. Same thing with Pine Valley. We separated those out in that kind of weird cream color there. You can see they've got 196 total there. And then town of Richland also had some for Richland Center. So we separated those out as well. So we have the data and are working through and have worked through separating it out. And that's what's illustrated here. And then also that same data corresponds to the chart at the top, which is the one that we were kind of using and working from to get to the billing and the contract amounts.
Is it fair to say that in the reconciliation of that, there's transfers in and transfers out, possibly for each area? You know, what we're
yes,
looking at.
absolutely.
Okay.
And the question I have is, are we in the process of setting up a standard operating procedure that will better classify where the call comes from going forward?
There's still human error. My suggestion going forward, and I hope that Administrator Clements will not be upset with me, but is that we're not going, this is a mute point, because once you change your billing structure to a per cap, this becomes mute. It's not important.
And when you say per cap, you're referring to like some kind of county levy?
Correct.
Okay,
Or municipality district, it doesn't matter. But either you do it per evaluation or per capita, whichever, but we aren't doing it based on call volume.
correct.
Right.
At what time is
That
it?
will change the entire structure though, too, won't it? Completely.
Wonderful program that was set up was supposed to calculate all that.
Well, that's all, like I
Just
said,
being
it's being
there,
applied.
that's, yeah.
So is there any estimates then how Sylvan and some of them are gonna feel about that?
We're gonna listen to Alan, has been waiting patiently, and he has some different suggestions for that.
But I don't think, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about. We can't rush to do like a county
Right.
levy for ambulance, because you're exactly right. We have Sylvan, we have Casanova, Lone Rock, we have a lot of these, so it's not something that we can just go and say, okay, we're gonna cover these 13 municipalities and we're gonna levy for the whole county, unless if there's a way then to make them whole. Yes,
So it's still gonna be a complicated procedure.
absolutely. Absolutely, and it's gonna take time. And what the county's plan is to really take get a neutral person to come in here, assess the whole program, your whole ambulance service for the county, and then come with a recommendation.
And that's what they're working on now, isn't it?
Yes, I've been working on it.
That's where all my gray hair was.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's very informative.
Very informative.
And next, we'll move to our guest, Alan DeYoung. Mr. DeYoung, thank you for waiting and being patient.
Absolutely. Hope everybody can hear me.
Talk a little bit. Let's see if we can.
Okay. I'll be honest, I did not know or wasn't aware that I was giving a presentation. I was just asked to attend this meeting, provide some insight from my experience with the EMS Association across Wisconsin, supporting agencies all across the state. So I'm not sure exactly what everybody's looking for in terms of guidance, answers. I obviously can talk about, the typical funding models that Wisconsin EMS agencies kind of abide by and the different revenue sources, but I'm going to guess most of you know, I would say, those common ones.
Well, why don't you start out by commenting on the overall situation, especially in rural counties, and the crisis that those townships or those ambulance services, are facing, and how they've started to deal various things that they've done, the structures that they've adopted, and ideas to handle that and provide service in some fashion.
Sure. So, it's no secret that EMS has a staffing and funding issue across the whole entire state and across the country. We've relied on volunteers for decades as basically subsidizing the taxpayer model. And that's why, at least in this case, there are no funds being levied to fund EMS, again, which is not uncommon of years past, but it's definitely changing over time, where a lot of the funding does have to come from the municipalities and whatever that is, whether it's counties, towns, villages, cities. But the funding has to be there because this is a public service. And although not mandated for cities, villages, and counties, it's, I would sort of say, mandated by the residents that dial 911 and that expect somebody to show up. So it's mandated in that sense of just the people want it. So rural areas obviously are kind of hit the worst in terms of they don't have the same call volume where metropolitan and suburban areas have. And there are certain thresholds that you need in order to get to a full-time service and to pay for basically what I'd say is 24/7, 365 readiness. Because when you're relying on volunteers, you don't have that instant readiness of somebody always responding to the station no matter what. And the same applies if you have a model that does combination of full-time staff, part-time staff, and volunteers. You still have to have a certain call volume threshold. And so many rural areas have moved towards some sort of regionalization or some sort of countywide service, whether using the county tax levy to simply just fund it or with the county actually running it. So those are obviously different models you can use. But the funding by itself, due to levy limits, kind of has been one of the biggest challenges. And that's why with the countywide levy limit exemption, that has been more sought to over the years. That's why we have more counties using that levy limit exemption. That being said, the levy limit exemption does have its quirks to it, as Trish kind of mentioned, where you do have to, if you're using that, you do have to cover the entire county. And so geographies can make that difficult, and then just call volume can make that difficult as well. Richland County is kind of in a unique spot where you're just over that threshold of about 1,000 calls. And 1,000 calls is about that time where really you're going to have a full-time service, and it needs to be funded at a certain level because you're going to have typically 2 ambulances out, potentially a 3rd ambulance out. as well as needing for mutual aid agreements, just in case that time arises. So staffing, no matter what, is hard, no matter who you are. Even I'll say the for-profit agencies struggle with staffing. The metropolitan areas struggle with staffing. Even some of the highest paying positions in EMS still struggle to cover calls because call volumes have not slowed down. So if you look at 2019 all the way to today, we see basically a 9 to 10% increase year over year, with only some anomalies here and there. With like 2020, we saw a small decrease, but every year those call volumes have kind of caught up, and they keep continuing to increase. And so it's becoming more of a necessity that municipalities as a whole fund EMS, just like they would their local police, or just like they would for any of those public services that you need and you expect. The only difference is obviously EMS is life and death versus something more so towards public works or something like that. And there's a cost to that readiness of being able to respond immediately. So I'm open to any questions. I guess anything you want me to speak on specifically.
The district model for providing service, does it have the ability to raise sufficient revenue to fund without looking to the municipalities to increase their contributions? Are they able to tax on their own account? Why don't you talk about that for a while?
Sure. So if we're referring to a joint EMS district, the district by itself is not allowed to levy taxes, unlike a school district. But a joint EMS district by itself does not have that levying authority. What the joint EMS district does allow for, it is used as a levy tool that municipalities can have a levy adjustment that they can exceed their levy limit then by a share of the joint costs. And that is capped though by CPI plus 2% for increases. So in the event that some municipalities wanted to start a joint district in EMS district in Richland County area, you could not use that adjustment on a newly formed district, because it has to be, that adjustment is for increases in costs, for year over year increases from an existing district, that then you can go up CPI plus 2% outside of that levy limit then.
So that the ability to generate revenue out of that model is capped in some way?
Correct. Yeah, it's kept by that ability to exceed your levy limit by your joint charges, basically. And then it's up to whatever CPI is plus 2%. So CPI of the prior year plus 2%. In every municipality, part of that district does need to pass a resolution just to acknowledge that they would be using this. We can sort of call it a levy limit exemption, but it's an exemption. It's really adjustment is actually what it's called, the joint EMS adjustment of their levy to be able to go outside that normal levy limit. But again, it wouldn't work if you don't have an existing district already.
Sure, and just for the sake of this question, assume that a district exists, the district itself is comprised of participating municipalities, right? And they have representatives that served in the district board. And what happens if one of the district members decides that they don't want to go along with increasing the adjustment?
in terms of they don't want to levy outside their levy limit
Correct.
using that, or
Correct. Do they
well,
hold the ability, does one member hold the ability to stymie the rest?
so all of the participating municipalities are required to pass resolutions. However, they don't necessarily have to exceed their levy limit if they don't need to, basically. So this joint EMS district is a tool that each participating municipality can use to go outside their levy to pay for their cost of that district. But let's just say one municipality has the funds to do so, they don't necessarily have to they don't have to use that adjustment to then go outside the levy limit if they don't want to.
Questions? Other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we are speaking about a district and we're speaking about the county, the footprint for the district and the county aren't necessarily the same. They could be different. So when we're talking about the number of calls at 1,000 roughly for the county, I don't believe that that's the county number of calls. I think it's the number of calls for this group. If we were to learn, how would we go about learning how many calls there actually are in the county?
That's my hope, is when we have this assessment done, that they'll take care of all that. And that's what I've seen from previous assessments from a couple of different firms, is they gather all of that information.
Okay, I have another question. So, if I may.
Please.
So in our packet, and I heard Barb, I think it was, briefly talk about per capita charges if we were to levy that way. That's one way. The other way is to use the valuation of the property. Could you speak about the benefits to one versus the other? Are you familiar with that? Like why we would use one versus the other? Because I can see some drawbacks to it. For example, in Dayton Township, where I represent, we have people that are on the highway there. And when you look at our call count, it's really high, but it's not necessarily people that live there. How does that work?
Look at the new proposed fees that will be going to finance on Monday. Thank you. I have proposed a new fee schedule that will begin in January, where if you live in one of our municipalities, you're charged one fee. If you don't, if you are driving through from Minneapolis and you crash in Dayton Township, you're going to pay a higher fee for our service. And that's typical for most places. That out of town pays higher if you're out of their service area, that you pay a higher. I did a query online looking through if that model was supported, and it really is.
Well, Mr. Dion, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, that model, the resident versus non-resident user fees is what they're typically called. Yes, that is very common across the state. Most municipalities charge residents one rate versus non-residents a different rate. They also may decide to not balance bill residents versus billing and going after basically non-residents, depending on, insurance. Obviously, you can't go after Medicaid or anything. And just to speak on the per capita, so officially you can present a per capita cost, but officially it's still, the tax is still value based no matter what, because that is a levy. We can't levy a per capita. You can only levy based on the value as the property tax value or equalized value, excuse me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
How does it work if I'm a Richland Center resident and I have an accident in another township?
You would be still covered under the resident.
Thank you.
Because you're in a contracted area. And the call count that we were looking at, is it based on where the accident occurred or where the person resides?
No, it's on where the call was
Okay.
responded.
Has anybody, and this has been talked about off and on for ever since we started having meetings, simply privatizing the whole thing. Do you have any involvement in that?
I guess what you mean by involvement in,
Do you work with any private organizations that take care of a complete county or half a county or a township?
so yes, our member, so we're a trade association, so we have membership. It's totally optional to be members. I will say 80% of our membership is municipal based, and then that other 20% is considered private, but nonprofits, typically volunteer groups. We do have a handful of for-profits and as well as some hospital-based, which are considered nonprofit, but they are private. So that's, a quarter of our, roughly 20% of our membership, give or take. So we try to say, like, truthfully, whatever is in the best interest of the community of what they need. If you prefer more control, or if you prefer, I would say, when you provide tax revenue that you want to invest in your local areas, obviously keeping it municipal owned is probably the best, method for you, best structure. If you prefer to just strictly outsource it, and I don't want to say not necessarily deal with it, but you definitely need to have oversight over it in some fashion, but you kind of you give away a lot of that control to any private entity, because they will have their own protocols in place, a lot of times they'll set their own user fees, which you may or may not have control over, depending if it's actually allocated in the contract here. Typically costs will increase no matter what, year over year. And we have seen a lot of municipalities moving away from the private model, even from a private nonprofit model, which is some of our membership as well. And I've seen them, municipalities move away from them. And it's a matter of, I guess you could say, control and investment into your local area. Because obviously, if you're spending money on a EMS station, yes, you have upkeep and overhead, but if they ever were to need to build a bigger station or something, could then that municipality, whoever owns it, utilize that building for other purposes? Same thing with your investing money into these assets of an ambulance, of equipment and things like that, that shall it dissolve at any time, that could be either pushed back to the municipalities that own it, or however it's structured in terms of if it's a district model or a county model. I mean, it can be structured so many different ways on that end, but it's really up to the residents and what they prefer.
Is there, I don't know the answer. I'm not sure this is a good question, but is there like a critical mass of population size that makes a privately owned ambulance more financially viable as opposed to a more rural setting?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, so there's not really one model, but what the biggest thing that's going to have an effect on that is the payer mix. So if you have a larger Medicaid population, obviously your reimbursements, I would say you can give a good estimate on, for Medicaid, you could see about $500 in reimbursement. That's a rough estimate, because obviously there's differences in mileage. There's differences if it's a basic life support versus advanced life support provided. But let's just say $500. Now, there's always a cost to readiness, as I kind of mentioned before. You have the cost of staffing, you have the cost of equipment, you have the cost of training, all these things that you just can't get away from if you want EMS there. And so a private company would look at the payer mix and say, well, we're going to have to charge more because we're not going to be able to collect from Medicaid. And the same thing. So I know earlier they talked about write-offs. So a common range is actually 30 to 40% of Medicare and Medicaid of your Medicare and Medicaid that you write off. And then with private, it's typically anywhere from like 15 to, I would say, 20% commercial insurance that you could end up writing off. But that payer mix, your population mix, plays a big role in basically how much it's going to cost you in the end, because somebody's going to have to subsidize it. If it's a private, let's say if it's private for-profit, obviously they're looking to make money on that as well, so they're going to need more. If it's a nonprofit, well, it's kind of depends how it's set up and how much oversight there is on that, versus a municipal, which basically all the books need to be open for open records. But I can tell you, based on populations, the average in terms of, if you look at your population, say you serve 10,000 residents, you're going to say about anywhere from 9 to 11% are going to call 911. Now, it may not be, 1,000 residents individually calling 911, but you're going to get around 9 to 11% basically be your call volume. That's why, like Richland, for example, is serving, I think, a population around 10,000, a little bit more potentially currently, and you do about 1,100 calls. If you look at similar population areas, they are also around that same range. Anywhere from the absolute low end of like 4% of their population calling, all the way up to, I've seen as high as like 20% for, we'll say, for Ashland. So that's a rural area, but Ashland Fire Department's taken over larger areas of Ashland County. And so they've had to deal with increased call volumes, and they also provide a paramedic level service. So that also plays a big role in, I don't want to say residents calling, but I've seen the opposite as well, where you have 1,000 population where only 10 people call, and a next door neighboring population of 1,000 where over 100 people call. So that makes a difference, obviously, because makes a difference with receivables in terms of billing reimbursement, and then how feasible is it to have a full-time service if you only have 100 calls, 200 calls even. That's why we're seeing a lot more of this regionalization or countywide type services, because you need that threshold of calls, as I said.
And right now, up to date, we have 1,240 calls. That is 2-minute current call volume for the year.
So you're over that.
I don't know how much time we have. At some point, I'd like to hear a little bit about the regionalization of service and models that people use, methods they use, but I don't know if we have time for that tonight.
If I could, I'd also like to learn about transition to a joint. If you're not able to take advantage of the CPI plus 2% for a couple of years, what do you do in the interim period? Do you initially levy really high so that you've got enough money to last you for a couple of years? I'd like to learn more about that in a future discussion too.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to have discussions offline, I mean, I'm sure Barb could share my contact information as well. Yeah, the newly formed district thing would at least take a year. You have to have at least 1 year prior. Can't be done with the newly formed one. But again, most of it, the primary ways EMS is funded is typically through some sort of property tax levy, and then through user fees or billing revenue, mainly. Now there's some other, not necessarily models out there, but we're working towards additional models of funding in the future. Like one of the things, and I'm sure Danielle is still in the room, but one of the things recently passed was an increase, Medicaid increase for what's called treat no transport, which is basically when you go to the scene and you don't end up transporting for whatever reason. Typically, you wouldn't get any reimbursement. Now Medicaid, for Wisconsin, they do provide a $69 reimbursement. That was just increased, but won't take effect until 2027. It'll go from $69 to $175. So not a massive increase, but it still provides more revenue, definitely. And so Richland County, I can tell you from my data that you would probably see roughly a $10,000 increase in reimbursement just on that treat no transport claims, because you had about 72 claims paid in 2023 and 66 in 2024. So
Other questions? I don't see anyone else. I'm sure there's other questions, but I think we're looking at 6:30, and thank you so much for your time and information. It was very, very good to hear.
absolutely. And like I said, please reach out, email questions. Happy to jump on the phone too as well with anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10, 2026 contract update.
We have had all but 3 of them returned, and I guess at this point in time, I'm optimistic, confident that we'll get the rest of the 3.
Is there another contract version, or is this the final one? I know we signed and sent one back. Is that the final one?
That's the final one for, yes,
For 2026.
for 2026. If the 3 municipalities or possibly 4 are able to form a district, they do have a different contract because of the district. And there are a few other little tweaks in there.
What municipalities are forming a district, perhaps?
Richland Center, Town of Richland, Town of Henrietta, and Boaz.
And
The district?
Yes.
Well,
what about the rest of us?
it's a start.
Marshall has simply said whatever City of Richland Center and the town of Richland
Right.
does, we're gonna probably
There's
do.
gonna be,
We feel we have no other choice.
Right.
Looking at something else, I'm wide open for any kind of a plan, but our basic statement is we go where the town of Richland, the city of Richland Center goes, because we have no choice but to go there.
Todd, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Not much to say. I'm not that concerned about it because I don't think, what's gonna happen, in my expectation, is the city will sign the 2026 agreement and go from there. And the options, as everybody's talked about 300 times, maybe a levy, maybe a district. So that's as far as we are. That's,
Thing quick. So Representative Kurtz and Senator Markline have a bill up right now. It's Assembly Bill 197. And that would create a regional EMS district. Regional is defined as an area that is 8 municipalities or more, or 232 square miles or more. What that bill would do is it would allow those communities to join and form a district. They would be able to go outside of their levy. They'd have to pass a referendum every 5 years in the totality of the district. So not individually, but a total. So kind of like a school district. They'd be able to go outside of the levy, CPI +2. The big difference from like what you were hearing from Alan earlier, you don't have to wait that first year. It's not based on anything. The other thing about starting a new district is you'd be able to tap into the innovation fund, that $300 million that we put in Act 12 last session. So both of those options would be options that would be on the table if we were to form like a regional district. The bill passed out of committee last week. We are very hopeful that we'll be able to get it across the finish line before the end of the session. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of your heads as you continue this. We are actively working on getting as many flexibilities as we can for people in your situation. You're not the only one. There are several other counties that we're talking to that are facing the same sort of issues as you guys.
Well, thank you, Todd.
so to finish thank you, because Tony actually told me that, which is what led to your presence here tonight.
Yes.
And I love that, by the way. And Tony and Howard, that's not the only EMS bill they worked on recently either, so they're all over this issue, trying to help with funding and all this. Okay, so what the city's doing, and it's no different than what you've heard in here. 2026 has to be its own category, because here we are. And then what do the next 10 years look like? And so does that look like a district? Don't know yet. Does that look like a levy? Don't know yet. So we're just working through with the attorney we've got on it now. What are the options? How does it work? And then as we get past the first of the year, I'm sure every municipality represented here is going to end up in much more detailed conversations. As for listing off 4 municipalities on a district, if it ever becomes a district, I would think everybody. I mean, I don't want this over here and that over there at all. My personal preference would be, come on.
Yep.
You know.
Well, some of us were at a meeting of the board, the county board, at least a month ago. And the county board directed that a committee be set up to study this. Is that now cast aside, or are we gonna do that?
From my discussions, number one, there was discussion on the board floor to have a committee. The latest conversation I've had with Dave Turk, the chairman, was we will have this study done and then we will come together and we will talk about what are our best next steps. Because we're not the experts on this. Not one single one of us in this room are the experts on what is best for the Richland Ambulance Service, for the Richland County Ambulance Service. And so we will get this study done. The county is looking to get it done. And then we bring everybody together to talk about, okay, what are our next steps?
Yeah, just for the, purposes of the discussion, we tried to get this done several years ago to have this study. So I'm all for studies as long as there are people a wide range of people that are involved in the process.
Which has to be more than just the people in this room. We have to be looking at the Lone Rocks, the Casanovias, the Viola.
I would insist on that if I was running it.
Everybody in the.
Yeah, it's gotta be, how are we going to manage providing service? And I would say even outside of Richland County, because we do get aid requests from others that are floundering under the same circumstances as we are. And there has to be a more rational way of figuring out how to provide that service. Not necessarily at less cost, but less cost than if everyone went on it their own. Yes, sure.
I have a question about the holdouts that haven't signed a contract. When the contracts were originally presented, it was that there were no negotiations. It was take it or leave it, take the contract or leave it. And I specifically remember a question being asked, are these terms negotiable? And the answer was no. So the holdouts now that are represented that haven't signed, will they have a different version of the contract than those that signed?
Yes.
Because there was another one sent down after the original, correct?
I'm signed 2, yes.
Yeah.
The second one had updated numbers, but the wording was exactly the same. The only thing that changed were the numbers.
Yeah.
Yes, the four municipalities did get an attorney. We are working with them and negotiating them because we want to be able to provide the service.
Yeah.
So is there any opportunity for the others to have the same terms, or I don't know what those terms are. I don't know if would be advantageous to others.
They were added to the executive and finance packet from trying to think of which date. Last week. We had executive and finance last week. You certainly can take a look at that and see if that would be, if your municipality feels it would be advantageous to look at that.
Okay.
But if they've already signed a contract.
We haven't signed them on our end yet. The county hasn't signed them because we are still waiting to receive all of them before we sign and return contracts.
The bottom line is you still have to have a service for 2026.
The community needs a service for that 2026. Absolutely.
And that's why I said, when I signed ours, it was due to the fact I'm not gonna let my people go without an ambulance service, so I signed it.
Same here.
But I think you have to, isn't it law that we have to provide?
You may
service?
first
Have to.
You
Yeah,
get
townships.
penalized by shared revenue if you.
Yes, you may lose your share revenue part of it. And the way it's worded, you may or shall provide that service. It doesn't say mandated.
It's a little vague, yeah.
Yeah. But for the best of your people, you want to have that service for them.
I'm sure we all will have.
Yeah,
We're just about done. For 26, and then that's gotta be, this category is 26, and then
Yep.
on to what the next, rest of the world looks like. And that's what we'll do.
Mhm.
And so all we're doing, I did meet with Mr. Kurtz, and he told me about this bill.
Yep.
And so I mentioned it here. And then, what's the right answer? And Trish is right. I'm not an expert.
No,
You're not an expert. So do you want a district? I don't know.
don't know yet.
Do I want a levy? I don't know. So before anybody gets the next 5 years or 10 years in your head, hold on.
Mhm.
We gotta get 26 lined up, which we're almost done doing. And then we can all get together and figure the rest of this out. And I would hope that everybody that's been participating will continue to do so. I
Right.
think more is better than less, and then everybody will know without having to worry so much and stress about this. You'll know what you're providing for your people for a long time when we're done.
Any other questions or comments? We're at item number 11.
Are we gonna have a meeting in December or what?
The current MOU talks about which months, and it was November. There wasn't one listed. Unless if there was a request by the committee to have a special meeting to discuss certain items.
We were doing about quarterly, wasn't it?
That's what's in the MOU. I know it pivoted to monthly for a while.
Yeah,
It
there
kind of
was
just
stuff
depended
going
on.
So
Yeah.
would January be it, or I don't remember.
County has made the decision that they will not, that the JAC will not be in existence in 2026.
yeah, we're not,
And I understand
end of
too.
December, we're not, we are not.
So this is our last meeting, unless there's a special one that anybody feels we have a need to get together in December.
Well, if it's your last meeting, I can tell you about one more bill that you guys might like.
Okay.
If you want.
Okay.
Yeah, do that.
So another bill that just was introduced last week, it's balance billing. So what that bill would do is it would require private insurance companies to pay 350% of Medicare, Medicaid. It also would require that, like, one of the issues right now that we see a lot is they'll say that, oh, your ambulance isn't in network. And then they won't pay as much of a reimbursement on it. And that ends in a lot of your write-offs that you guys were going through earlier. This bill would help ensure that the ambulance companies are getting their money. It would take some ambulance providers, instead of like them getting the check, the insurance company will send the check to you and say, you have to give it to your ambulance service. But you don't know that you have to give it to your ambulance service. You think it's something else and you go on your little shopping trip or vacation or whatever. So we found all of these things. So it helps to make sure that the ambulance service is actually getting the money. It ensures that they're being fairly paid, and in like a reasonable time. So that bill just came out last week. Again, something that we're cautiously optimistic on. The insurance companies don't love it because we're making them cough up money. But it's something that we think is really important, and it would also stop balance billing. So then you have your constituents, our constituents that aren't getting the surprise bills when they call 911 because they didn't know that it wasn't covered by their insurance. So that's a bill we've been working on for almost 2 years now, and looking forward to seeing that one come out as well. But again, that's something, I don't know how much of an impact it would have for you guys, but I think it would probably drop that number down pretty substantially, I would hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from that?
Can I clarify something on that?
Yes.
And I'm very excited about that bill as well. And one of the things, at least it states, is that they have to provide, or basically they, meaning the insurance companies, have to reimbursed based on a rate that is set or approved by a local government entity in which the jurisdiction which the emergency ambulance services originated. So meaning local government can set their own rates that specifically private insurance then would have to abide by, which I'm sure we're going to see some pushback on, but that's where, again, private insurance does definitely provide a lot more funding for EMS. Not enough to fully fund it, but that's where at least municipalities could make up a little bit of the cost with the insurance company that try to get away with paying less on an EMS bill versus what's reasonable to collect. I just wanted to make mention of that local government can set those rates, and typically they should actually be set each year on what your user fees are. I know Barb mentioned doing non-resident versus resident. You definitely should have those in place, even with whatever district moving forward, if that's what happens, or whoever's running it moving forward, having those rates set in ordinance and then adjusting them each year. Because if this bill does get pushed through, having those rates set is going to be critical. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
How long is Barb as an interim? Has there been anything new on applications for the position?
Just reposted the service director position last week. And I think it closes the first week of December.
And they're lined up.
Has she agreed to stay on until we have someone?
They're lined up as far as interviews and such. So we'll probably do the same process as we did the last round where Carrie Severson, Barb, and I worked together to do the interviews.
And did you have people that put in? Okay.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Barb, for serving as the interim director.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You did do it.
Yep.
And putting up with us.
It's been a pleasure.
We've been lucky. It's been great to have her. Tried to convince her to quit her nursing job, but she just won't do it.
That's where my heart belongs.
I move to adjourn.
I will second that as the final meeting of the Joint Ambulance Committee. Till we hear something else, this is defunct. Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Thank you all who came. Thank you, Don, online.
Yep, you're welcome.
Just to tell you, I heard you, I wish the best. I think Bob and Enterprise can do it better than anybody with anything. So-
And that's something that they'll bring up, you know,